So we start. Gentlemen, I'm very excited to be in this seminar because this seminar is all about regulation. And in the case of Aadhaar, the regulation was brilliantly executed. So that's why I said I'm happy. Now, there are all kinds of regulations. You have regulations where you allow everything to develop gradually. There are many sectors in India where things were allowed to manage to develop gradually. But then you are regulating basically for a consumer, but the consumer doesn't gain. The old system continues and nothing happens. In Aadhaar, in particular, they had gone in for a massive amount of regulation, a massive amount of introduction of Aadhaar. And when you have this kind of regulation, there's a lot of resistance from the existing stakeholders, and that's precisely what had happened in Aadhaar. And why I'm excited being here because Ram Sevak knows that the telecom regulation that we had gone for even much more massive regulation. When we went into much more massive regulation, there was enormous amount of opposition. There were Supreme Court cases. There were Parliament didn't work for 2 days, etc. And I also later on had plenty of problems. But Ram Sevak was able to avoid that in Aadhaar. When he came into telecom, I noticed that he did get into a lot of problems, but he was able to get out of them. So, in my mind, Aadhaar was brilliantly executed, and the brilliant execution was on account of two professionals being there, both the chairman and Ram Sevak were both professionals. And therefore, it came out very well. Of course, Sharma wrote about regulation, Aadhaar, and then he wrote a second book about Aadhaar. But I'm not going into a book reading event. I am trying to analyze what Aadhaar did. Aadhaar went to the Supreme Court very early, and before it went to the Supreme Court, a book was also written. And all kinds of professionals wrote the disaster that would happen if Aadhaar was introduced, what will happen to privacy, etc. Now, all these privacy issues are generally raised by incumbents who feel that if instruments like Aadhaar come in, their monopoly would be lost. But the case was managed beautifully, and Supreme Court approved Aadhaar with some kind of observation. Now we have Quraishi and we have Srinivas and we have Sharma. I think all of us need to get back into the Supreme Court judgment and see that now Aadhaar has stabilized. And now that Aadhaar has reached 99% of the people, which is absolutely remarkable for a country like India. Now, do we get into that book? Shankkar Aiyar is not here. He also wrote a book. I would have told him that please get back into your book and read the observation in the light of the recent experience on Aadhaar. Here, there are people who got a lot of Ram Sevak. He got a lot of brickbats and he got a lot of bouquets on Aadhaar. And then he made some suggestions in a book also. I think all the experts today, the biggest expert is of course Quraishi, who went into the whole thing again with massive numbers, the entire population. Actually, Aadhaar, telecom regulations, and elections, the entire population was almost covered. I think it is time that we get back into the issue. We get back into what the Supreme Court said. When Aadhaar started, everyone said if it goes into the private sector, it will lead to havoc. Now, uh, now 97% of the population has been here. In telecom regulation, we went 90% to the private sector. And people said there would be havoc. There was no havoc. Of course, there were problems. Of course, there were court cases. There are supposed to be court cases as far as regulations are concerned, because only court cases and only the Supreme Court then stabilizes different regulations. I remember the cases uh, vis-a-vis telecom regulation. They, all of them went to the courts. I'm fortunate, and had it not happened that way, I'm fortunate that in all the court cases, TRAI won. And TRAI was able to get over a lot of problems because the Supreme Court was very supportive. Pradip Mehta of Kutch is now writing a book, The Role of Supreme Court in Regulation. All over the world, it is the Supreme Court, it's the court which knows a lot. All over the world, the Supreme Courts and the judiciary have helped the regulatory process, because the regulatory process possibly cannot be controlled by the political government. That was the entire logic of creating regulators. But now a certain amount of time has gone, and there are many people who had started Aadhar, Nandan Nilekani, and then we had Ram Sevak, and all of them are around, and they are professional people. And I think it's time to go into Aadhar again, particularly to see how much Aadhar should be handled by the private sector. That is the entire meaning of liberalization. I don't know how much Aadhar or similar systems, or say the identity system in the United States, is in the hands of the private sector. A properly regulated private sector can do no harm. It can only bring in more competition and therefore superior services. And I read Raul Pal. He's a legendary investor in Europe. And he made an observation, and I must read that observation. It says, India has, without question, made the largest technological breakthrough in any nation in living memory. The technological advancement has even left Silicon Valley standing. India has built the world's first national digital infrastructure, leaping at least two generations of financial technologies, and has built something as important as the railroad was for the UK ages back, or the interstate highways were for the US again quite some time back. And India has been able to finalize JAM, Jandhan, Aadhaar, and Mobile. And this has matured our communication network to a lot of extent, and also investment to a lot of extent. Now, Quraishi has handled the most difficult job of matching Aadhaar with the electoral rolls. Whether there is scope for the electoral roll almost being merged into the Aadhaar. I think it is possible, but there must be problems. Is it possible for many of our services, ration cards, etc., to be merged into Aadhaar, and they can have various fields? And all these issues I leave to the experts here, and I leave to the representative of the government, Srinivas, whether more services can now get into Aadhaar. Aadhaar is a multi-billion business opportunity. Can someone look at Aadhaar as a business opportunity and get into this? Whatever observation Supreme Court had made, I think it is time for people like Ram Sevak to study those observations and come back. Can I ask Yakub, who had dealt with the most difficult application of Aadhaar into the electoral rolls to give his address now. Yakub.
Uh, Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I'm very happy to be invited to this webinar. First of all, I would like to congratulate Ram Sevak for this lovely book, and uh, uh, and also basically for the wonder, the digital wonder that you created in Aadhaar. And uh, I would like, but at the same time, Ram Sevak, I have a complaint against you. You are an IS officer. Are you embarrassed to be an IS officer? Why have you not mentioned it in the blurb? I was looking for it. And there is a background because, the bureaucracy, particularly the IS, are attacked all the time. And when you do wonderful work, the kind you have done in Aadhaar, why did you have to hide your IS identity? I cannot understand or appreciate. Now, I would all, if I wish Nandan was here because I would have pulled his leg too. When he was appointed chairman, I had my apprehensions. And what was that? That if he succeeds in Aadhaar, he will get all the glory. If he fails, he will throw in the towel and blame the IAS for the failure, as is the custom and fashion. But I'm glad that you guys got along extremely well, which you have documented in the book very, very honestly. That's a very nice thing. Now, Nandan had come to meet me in Election Commission when he was just starting his work. And by then, we already had a database of 550 million. So, and also by then, we had also started using collecting fingerprints, biometrics in Goa. The entire election of Goa in that year, which was whatever it was, 2008, 9, and 10 or 11, was with biometric. But there was a lot of opposition from the people of Goa about the its application, its use in identification of the voters. So we said, all right, we will not use it. We will not turn away any voter, but let us try it out to see how it works. So we conducted the entire election. It was kind of a dry run using biometric. Of course, we did not use it for decision making. But when Nandan came and in a discussion, when we realized that he was going to collect these biometrics of all over the country, why should we be duplicating the effort? Why should we spend the money? Immediately, we decided on the spot that we will discontinue it and wait for Aadhaar to complete his job and link up our data with their data and start using. Now, what were our concerns? We, ECI, always welcomed Aadhaar, and I personally welcomed Aadhaar. I was one of the first to adopt Aadhaar, and the people came to my house. Used to be on Akbar Road those days, so they came and captured my data. And after that, when we heard lots of negative things and reservations, so occasionally I used to feel uncomfortable whether I made a mistake. Although my intrinsic belief in this was strong, because I've been to many countries, and everywhere in the world there is some kind of a national identity, whether it is National Population Register or Aadhaar or something or the other. In some form, some identity has to be established. There was no doubt about it. Now, just one second. Now, what were ECI's concerns? What are our continuing concerns where we thought Aadhaar will be helpful? First of all, the duplicate voters. Our system was totally decentralized. In every district, they will try and run deduplication software of all kinds. They will discover some. But if somebody was registered in multiple districts, there was no way we could catch them. Second was the migrant people, and there are about 100 million or more. Now, that was a constant problem, and law requires that if you migrate and where you're going to live for more than 6 months, you have to register yourself. Now, earlier, you had to deregister yourself from the old place. Otherwise, it was a criminal offense. If you're registered at two places, there is imprisonment of 2 years. So we made it easy. We said, all right, at the new place where you apply in Form 6, just mention your previous address and the card, the number, EPIC number, and we ourselves will delete it, and the owners were shifted to ECI. Third thing where we feel Aadhaar can be useful in the long run, right now we are not using any digital the technology for identification, is impersonation. Because in any case, we feel impersonation has gone down almost totally, because we have a photo identity card. Your photograph is on the electoral roll. The political party agents are sitting in the polling booth. If you impersonate, they're there to identify you. But ideally, there's some stage may come and we may need a biometric identification of voters. So then I wonder why there is so much of opposition. Because when the Supreme Court made it illegal, people's suspicion arose that even if Supreme Court is finding it objectionable, there must be something in it. As it is, people have very little faith in the government. Particularly in some governments have more of this problem. So, Ram Sevak, I'm very happy to tell you that when you came on the television and you explained to it and you took personal guarantee, at least it reassured me, and I'm sure it must have had the same effect on those people. Now, in this background, in 2015, we had taken a decision to start linking the Aadhaar when your job was over, and about 320 million data had been integrated. But then came the Supreme Court order making it illegal. Immediately, we got cold feet and we decided to abandon it. And this is where it is lying. In fact, Election Commission later wrote to Supreme Court seeking clarification what is to be done now. And I believe some clarification must have come through the government, and Election Commission is all ready and all set to start integrating the data. Thank you very much.
Ram Sevak, will you like to take the floor last, or should I ask Srinivas to start?
Then I can probably
Yes.
come in the last.
Okay. Srinivas.
Respected Sri Baijal ji, respected Sri Quraishi ji, respected Sri Sewak Sharma ji. Today it is difficult to envisage life in India without an Aadhaar number. And I must say that Sri Sewak Sharma's leadership has ensured that India shows the world how identity projects are done and other services are built on identity infrastructure. It's truly a make in India story, as solutions were designed and implemented in India. And Aadhaar remains a foundation of a citizen's empowerment. And his book has reiterated that citizens' needs come first and foremost. Personally, Sri Sevakji has been a role model for radical reforms and transformational governance. And I'm truly privileged to speak today in this book discussion. The book has provided the reader several insights into the remarkable success story of Aadhaar, and that has withstood many battles and also legal scrutiny. The book also presents a story of optimism, resilience, a deep sense of commitment for improved service delivery. It fascinates the reader about the remarkable possibilities of a paperless digital world with the most marginalized sections of the society benefiting maximum. The book has several chapters, 3 sections, 11 chapters, and I'll quickly run you through the salient features of the book. The Unique Identification Authority was created as a unique public-private partnership with an organizational strength of 1,331 posts. Several distinguished IAS officers have served with passion, commitment, and drive to make the UIDAI a reality. There were also officers from several other services, and a number of members came from the private sector. An ecosystem of alliances was forged as the UIDAI became a melting pot of government, private sector, civil society, and academia. It was a huge learning organization without rigid hierarchies and divisions to ensure that government and private sector worlds work together. The UIDAI decided to issue a random number and not a card. The decision to issue a random number as Aadhaar reduced costs and enabled inclusion of the poor. It was smarter than a smart card. Quite unique in conception, the random number of 12 digits could accommodate up to 100 billion numbers. The Aadhaar number was not easy to guess, and even if the number was available, it could not be directly used. Besides, Aadhaar is for a lifetime and the number remains with the individual even after death. The UIDAI collected minimal information, and information collected was not used for any other purposes. In many ways, the UIDAI became a trusted third party to authenticate identities. When I look back at the roots of the Aadhaar, it was envisaged that unique IDs should be given to BPL families to better manage the benefits and the subsidies that are administered to them. The UIDAI was designed for 1 million authentications per hour, and it was decided that failure to authenticate should not lead to denial of service. In January 2020, the authentications every month were around 1 billion. Aadhaar has become an example for many countries looking to India for replication of their identity programs. There were innovations introduced in enrollment, use of enrollment agencies where payments were based on successful generation of Aadhaar for enrollments done. Post-enrollment innovations included dedicated upload systems for delivery of real-time reports. There was emphasis on quality control at the back end with verification of biometric exceptions. The innovations post-Aadhaar generation also included checking of duplicate Aadhaar instruments. The Aadhaar, as has been pointed out by the chairman, faced a complex range of legal, institutional, and civil society challenges and immense scrutiny regarding its impact on the right to privacy. Several critical articles had appeared and also PILs filed. Data privacy under the Act is the responsibility of the authority, and the right to privacy as a fundamental right was adjudicated by the 9-judge bench of the Honorable Supreme Court, and Aadhaar-related petitions were decided by the 5-judge bench of the Honorable Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has said that Aadhaar empowers the marginalized to avail the fruits of government welfare schemes. The UIDAI had a significant engagement with civil society. It had a massive outreach plan and several rounds of meetings for consensus building. As has already been pointed out, the critics said that biometrics were unreliable, database was insecure, technology was untested, deduplication was not needed. Also, it felt that the cost projections by the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy of about 14,000 crores were understated. Civil society also felt that Aadhaar is illegal, unnecessary, ghost beneficiaries were exaggerated, and implementation could result in exclusion of beneficiaries and end of welfare schemes. Today, most of these arguments have been unfounded, with 50% of the poor people using Aadhaar to access rations, Narega payments, social pensions, and bank accounts, and there is a lot of faith that has been reposed in the system. One sentence in the book that has touched me deeply was, Aadhaar touches the most fundamental of human values, our need for an identity. In comparison to Aadhaar, the electoral voter lists and the National Population Register provided a lot more information. Despite this, there was widespread panic that emanated from a story that about a CSC manager selling credentials for rupees 500. Dr. Sharma has explained that data linking by seeding Aadhaar with different databases is intended to prevent leakages in delivery of subsidies and entitlements by elimination of duplicates. He has further emphasized that authentication footprints do not constitute surveillance and disclosure does not increase vulnerability. The Aadhaar in its initial years faced several existential crises. The UIDAI was at loggerheads with the National Advisory Council, the Home Ministry, the Finance Ministry, the Planning Commission, and the Parliament. As has been said in the book, the comments said, you have no authority to do it, you cannot do it, it's not worth doing. However, after 2014, the Prime Minister's support for Aadhaar offered the ray of hope for its survival. I was part of the section on when Aadhaar came alive, and several success stories in using Aadhaar for delivery of services were visible. Aadhaar-enabled applications have become absolutely essential to identify and authenticate persons in India's digital world. To sign a document, to get a copy of the driving license, to get a utility bill, to make a payment, there's an API for each of these. E-signs, DigiLockers, Bharat Bill payment systems, UPIs. Also, the first impact that became visible was the Aadhaar-based biometric attendance system, AEBAS, when it was introduced in 2014. And today I see there is far more regularity in attendance and also a monitoring system for attendance across Central Secretariat. It demonstrated that the authentication requests could be responded to in seconds using lightweight, inexpensive systems. The next big step was Digital India, an initiative that the Prime Minister had taken personal interest and appreciated the role of technology that has been played in governance. Jeevan Praman, the digital life certificate, was launched a week from conceptualization. The online registration at hospitals was launched on July 1, 2015. I have vivid memories of the passion and drive that went into the Digital India launch. Shri Sharma ji had visited AIMS in the morning around 8 o'clock for several days to make it happen. There were a huge number of preparatory meetings, and today I find that the AIMS model has been replicated in hundreds of public hospitals since. Online registration system has one of the largest digital footprints of Digital India projects and represents a precursor to the National Digital Health Mission. Today we have the Central Secretariat using completely on digital signature certificates, a secure digital key. The digital locker and is currently placed on public cloud, has over 33 million users and stores 3.7 billion documents. There have been several advances thereafter on the Aadhaar platform. Aadhaar-based eKYC is currently used. The National Payments Corporation of India has built the Aadhaar Payments Bridge to channelize government benefits and subsidies to rightful hands. The linking of Aadhaar to bank accounts has become a reality, and crores of beneficiaries who are using the NREGA payments and also the NSAP benefits are being transferred with Aadhaar seeding. Not only the RBI, but the IRDA, the PFRDA, and SEBI have adopted Aadhaar for their services. In 2016, TRAI also permitted Aadhaar-based eKYC for acquiring new subscribers. States have been forerunners in this, and as the book points out, Aadhaar-based service delivery systems first commenced in Andhra Pradesh using the public distribution system, pensions, and also NREGA payments. Subsequently, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas adopted Aadhaar for LPG subsidy, and the scheme was implemented across 291 districts of India. The development of the India stack, which we currently see, has enabled many paperless and cashless services to be delivered to India's citizens. Of course, the 2015 economic survey has supported the Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity solution to ensure targeted delivery of subsidies for public distribution, kerosene, and LPG. When I traveled as Chairman Board of Revenue across the length and breadth of Rajasthan, the impact of public distribution system using Aadhaar seeding could be seen, and there was massive support for utilizing the system. The government's move towards a direct benefit transfer has enabled huge transfers of monies using Aadhaar-seeded digital platforms. The benefits using Aadhaar have been quantified at rupees 90,000 crores every year, resulting from massive improvements witnessed in targeted deliveries. To conclude, let me say that Shri Sewak Sharma ji has been a tireless crusader for Aadhaar. He has fought a number of battles that needed to be fought and won, and established the resilience of Aadhaar, ensuring that it found universal acceptability. It can be said that Aadhaar and post-Aadhaar solutions have impacted the lives of ordinary citizens, making the process simpler. Aadhaar has also ensured that ghosts and imposters have been eliminated from the system. The breadth of Aadhaar-based service deliveries will only increase in the coming years. The impact has already been breathtaking. I found the book a thoroughly enjoyable read, and I recommend it to all the viewers on this in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinivas. Now, as I see it, we have another half an hour, according to the program which has been circulated by the IIC. The program says that Ram Sevak will speak for 10 minutes, and then I will summarize. Now, I propose as follows, that I will raise a few more questions and then leave the seminar to Ram Sevak, because we are lucky that we have a person here who comes from an IIT, and that's a great advantage that he is from an IIT, so he has a technical mind. And second, that he has dealt with both the he has dealt with both the most difficult regulations, Telecom and Aadhaar. And before I raise my further questions, I'll just ask him, was life more difficult in TRAI, or was the life more difficult in Aadhaar? That answer will give me some benefit, not for all. I think everyone remembers that in 2014, Aadhaar was almost declared illegal. And I remember a statement on behalf of the present ruling party which said that Aadhaar will be dismantled. There was so much of opposition to Aadhaar. But of course, the moment the present Prime Minister gave his first lecture, he said Aadhaar will go on. He has a technical mind, and he said Aadhaar will go on and we'll work relentlessly on Aadhaar. So I think we should all be grateful for that statement. Otherwise, I don't know where Aadhaar would have landed. Second question I want to raise is, Aadhaar was initially opposed by a number of different departments in government which were doing a lot of work on identification. Ration cards, I was also looking after that work at a point of time. Ration cards, this identity, that identity, because even creation of identity cards was a way of doing business by the corrupt. So the first question that I want to raise, Ram Sevak, is, what is the progress in integrating Aadhaar with all the departments, and all departments being one additional feature in the ration card? Then we won't need these hundreds of authorities who's looking after identities. Can the Indian Aadhaar become a counterpart of the American identity system? And I remember Supreme Court, when the case was going on, there was a lot of excitement that Supreme Court may declare Aadhaar as unconstitutional and illegal. Everything in India which benefits the masses is termed as unconstitutional in the beginning. Now, I want to know whether any work has been done on Aadhaar to look after or to improve the present Aadhaar, which is based on the Supreme Court judgment, to go further, because surely my experience has been that as the regulation improved in telecom, and we kept going back to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court started approving everything. So if someone goes with the same issues to Supreme Court today, I'm sure the judgment would be different. So I want, I request Ram Sevak to deal with these issues, integration of Aadhaar, and what did he face after Aadhaar was almost being declared illegal. Thank you. Ram Sevak, the floor is yours. I'm not coming back. You will sum up all.
Thank you very much, sir. So first of all, good afternoon to you all. Mr. Pradip Baijal, the chairperson of this webinar. You have been an outstanding administrator yourself, and you have been my illustrious predecessor in TRAI, and you have all the experience of dealing with these complicated issues. And most importantly, recently, your book on China. I mean, who would imagine that a telecom regulator, an ex-telecom regulator, will write on such a complicated issue of foreign policy and other related issues. Then, of course, Mr. Quraishi again needs no introduction. You have been again one of the most illustrious had career, most illustrious career.
Ram Sevak, can I intervene here? Since you mentioned about my China book, I wrote the China book because I was fed up. I was absolutely fed up with the two posts that I had been earlier, disinvestment and telecom reforms. And the number of cases in the High Court, Supreme Court, and my need for presence there, and the CBI teams very large numbers coming to my house. So I decided I will not talk on these two issues and I will not write on these issues. So I decided to write the China book. And it has been the most fascinating experience because foreign service officers have said that the book is very professional. I'm also thrilled that everyone says Ram Sewak is very good, he's from an IIT, to point out that I found coming from IIT a very big advantage for working in the IAS. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Quraishi has been one of the most illustrious officer of our service. Srinivas ji, of course, is our junior colleague, but he has also been one of those persons who have had tremendous amount of passion, and that passion I actually explored and found when I visited him, and on basis of discussions with him, the online reservation system in the hospitals were actually devised, and I could see the passion and the involvement which Mr. Srinivas exhibited. So I am lucky and fortunate to be in the company of such illustrious people. So let me first, tackle the question which Dr. Quraishi had raised in the beginning, that why have I not listed IAS as on the introduction and the blurb on the book? Sir, I have not really. I mean, I really did not do it intentionally. Probably, in fact, in my book, if you read, sir, then it's very clearly written that I joined the IAS in the year 1978, and then I started working. So there's a whole chapter devoted to that particular experience. And I must also say that I've been very, very lucky to have joined this illustrious service. And I'm really proud of that, because there is no other service in this country which could have given me such variety of experience and such an exposure and the kind of opportunity to serve the people. Because you see, while we were doing a job, at the same time we had that feeling that we are doing something for the people and something for the country. So I think it has been an extraordinary experience of working in the IAS, and also the kind of diverse positions and diverse situations which one has been given in course of this job. So I think I'm proud of that, and I had absolutely no intention of hiding that particular fact, though it may have been omitted in the blurb. Coming back on the question of other questions which the chairperson has raised. One is whether TRAI was more difficult or Aadhaar was more difficult. I think these are really not very comparable situations, sir. What has happened is that TRAI has a different kind of stakeholders, and Aadhaar had a different kind of stakeholders, and their opposition and the opposition in TRAI was quite on different footing. So telecom service provider, for example, whenever there is a decision which goes sometimes against them, they all rise in unison and say, no, this person is a bad person, he's not doing his job properly. So it's all based on how the decisions benefit them or harm them. On the other hand, Aadhaar actually became the perennial punching bag, as I have devoted one chapter to it, that Aadhaar is everybody's favorite punching bag. Everybody would like to attack. Ye bahut kharab hai. The whole country will go to dogs, and the privacy will be destroyed, and the entire country will become George Orwell's 1984, and there will be surveillance, and there will be all kinds of things. So this is a different this was a different ball game, and of course we faced all those brick bets. Now the other issue which you raised, other question which you raised, why did the departments opposed it? So as you rightly pointed out, the departments, when we went and initially for about 4 or 5 months, Mr. Nandan Nilekani and we were the only 2 employees of UID Authority of India. And we had prepared a stock presentation. Of course, presentations were not very common then in 2009, but we had prepared one. And we would go like salespersons to each department, to each secretary, and say, look, this is what we propose to do, an identity. And they'll be depending on whom you are approaching, there'll be different kind of responses. So one will be that, look, it has already been done. There are so many identity documents. There is a BPL card, there is a PDS license, there is a PDS card, there is an election ID card. All kinds of identities are there. Driving license is there, passports are there. Why do you want to create another identity? So that's one part which says it has already been done. The second response was that, look, it is not worth doing. Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to spend so much of money doing this kind of thing? Once it is already there, it is not really worth doing this particular exercise. So you should not do it. The third response will typically be that it is not possible to do it. After all, since large many years, people have been experimenting and figuring it out as to how to remove duplicates and ghosts. And look, nothing has happened. Ration card mein duplicate hataya, drive chalaya, uske baad again it has come back. So it is not possible to ensure uniqueness in the exercise which you are doing. And of course, uniqueness in a space in a population of 1 billion is simply impossible. So one chapter I have devoted in my book, it is technologically infeasible, impossible. And all kinds of scientists started giving theories saying that there'll be large number of duplicates. You can't do this. Authentication is a pipe dream. Everybody was just condemning the technology which we were going to employ. And last straw or last sort of attack on this was that you have no authority to do it. After all, identity is a matter of Home Ministry. It is a Home Ministry which does the identity, and who are you to really enumerate countries' people? And you will not believe, sir, even the ministerial, even when we started doing it after some time, even the establishment in the government, they sort of came back and said, no, you are not doing anything. This is not a good project, and this is not, you should not do this. I recount an experience where I had gone to the minister to actually brief him on the parliamentary question. And this was about the privacy and Aadhaar and other issues. So when I was briefing him, the honorable minister said, Mr. Sharma, you are doing something very bad. I'm going to, you should not be doing this. I got really fed up because everybody was condemning us and I told him, sir, we are only doing the government's project. It is not for us to justify the project. You have given a task to us. I'm just a government servant, and I'm just carrying out the implementing, the plans of the government. Now, why should I be defending that decision of the government? It is for you to defend. So therefore, if you are so convinced that that it's a bad decision, then you please stop the program, and I'll get posted somewhere else. Why should I really be bothered about this particular project? So sometimes, we became such butt of all the kind of attack from all sides that it became very difficult. But let me say that because this was a real public-private partnership. We had extremely professional people, as Mr. Baijal has pointed out, extremely professional people from private sector. We also have extremely professional people from the government sector, interestingly, because the model of deputation which we employed was that we will take somebody on deputation only when he is interested in coming to this project. And therefore, we assembled a whole group of people who were interested in doing this project. So that's one part. The passion which actually happened, I have never seen that passion in any project, because everybody came together and in a way, they were voluntarily. And Mr. Nandan Nilekani in the beginning itself said, Ram Seva, we should create a team which is a diverse team, because creativity happens at the intersection of diverse sort of fields. Not really, everybody is in the IAS and everybody will just talk about his district experiences. This is not going to give creativity. So let's have all services. So every service was there: Indian Police Service, Indian Administrative Service, audits and accounts, railways. You name the service, and the officers from that service were there. So public sector was also very, very eclectic team, as they would say. That's I think that's how we were able to pull it together. Now comes the question of linking of Aadhaar with other kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of misconception about Aadhaar in terms as to what it does. So actually, every identity document, sir, which we have had in this country, talk of driving license. Now, what is a driving license? A driving license actually is an eligibility document which essentially tells you that this is a document, this is an authority given by this state, which actually declares you capable of driving a vehicle. So it's an eligibility document. But who is eligible is the identity. So underlying is the identity. Similarly, election ID card is actually a document which declares that this person is a citizen of India and he is a valid voter. So essentially, this is again an eligibility document. Now, who is eligible to vote is actually the identity of the person. Passport again is a citizenship document and underlying is the identity. Sir, what we created, and actually this is very interesting to understand, and this is the world's first such concept, which is basically create an identity without eligibility, which means just create that this is Ram Sewak Sharma and this person resides in India and no eligibility. Whether Ram Sewak Sharma is poor, rich, or voter, citizen, non-citizen, able to drive, not able to drive, is eligible for subsidy or not eligible for subsidy, that is actually a question of domain. That other domains, which is basically Motor Vehicles Department or Election Commission of India or the Food and Civil Supplies Department, etc. So this is how we created an identity without eligibility. So much so that citizenship, which is typically the way a person is, after all, you are going to enlist people in India, so you should be talking about citizens of India. Now that one was that obviously UIDAI in the beginning itself was told that you are not going to get into the question of citizenship or not. You will enlist the residents of India. So actually the citizenship question, which is again a very vexed question, citizenship question is not a very simple question, because citizenship determination is a legal process. It cannot be determined in a survey. And when you try to do it, it has its own problems and issues. So essentially, this is what we did. Second thing which, sir, we did, and actually that is now sort of standing us in good stead, and that is the digital part of it. We created a set of digital identity, which means it is not a paper card, it's nothing smart card, nothing like that. And in fact, smart card lobby was very, very against us, saying that you guys are doing something which is impossible to do in a country which is as disconnected as India. At that time they were saying that connectivity in India. So therefore what you are doing is not possible. Now the digital identity part essentially means that you could integrate this identity into any digital transaction. So one is that it's a identity, no eligibility, which means who is going to get a subsidized food is not really my domain. It is a domain of the food delivery department. But when you go and get the food, get the ration from the shop, then at that time I will be able to say, yes, this is Mr. X. Now you have to figure out whether this Mr. X is deserving a ration or not. That's your problem. So essentially, identity proof, which is actually the common problem of all domains. You go to any formal system, the first question the formal system is going to ask you, who are you? Now, if that question of who are you is solved, then the rest is very easy. For example, if you want to open a bank account, now first you say, I am who I am, and I am able to present a document, a digitally signed KYC document, know your customer document. Then the other part of opening a bank account becomes very easy. And that is how you are now able to open a bank account sitting at home. Every Amitabh Bachchan and everybody, is talking ICICI, you can open a bank account at home, and that's how you do it. You identify yourself, you authenticate yourself using your Aadhaar, and the rest, identity problem is solved. Thereafter, the rest is very easy. So that's one part. So therefore, once you have a digital, similarly for mobile SIMs, Now the Reliance Jio fellows who came into the market, they were able to create 100 million customers using electronic KYC. So essentially, this particular part of KYC is possible only because you created a foundational identity, an identity which is not related or connected to a purpose, an identity without eligibility. And that is how you are able to now integrate this into anything you want to integrate. And that, I think, is the beauty, because you are able to integrate it, and you are able to integrate it online in a digital manner. You don't have to do a whole paper process to integrate it. So this is, I think, these two factors, these two attributes, which is essentially digital and without eligibility, are actually responsible largely for the success of Aadhaar. Now comes the question. The third question, sir, which you asked was that these Supreme Court judgment, and how did the Supreme Court judgment impact? Now, Supreme Court, basically these privacy fellows, they said that, everybody is, this Aadhaar is going to create a surveillance state. It is going to profile everybody. It is going to, open the privacy of everybody. So everybody was, apprehensive of that, and they all went to Supreme Court with that question. And Aadhaar is one which is responsible for declaring that privacy is a fundamental right, because they raised the question, and then they also said that it's a right. We have come to actually enforce a fundamental right. Now, Supreme Court said, is privacy a fundamental right? They said, yes, it is. And therefore, the Supreme Court actually constituted a very large bench, 9-member bench, to decide whether it's a fundamental right or not. So it is due to Aadhaar that the privacy as a fundamental right was declared by the Supreme Court. Thereafter, they started into the question as to whether Aadhaar as an artifact, violates this privacy or not. That's what Srinivas said, about 5-member judge bench decided that question. And actually, if you read that judgment of 1,300 and odd pages, which went into this question as to whether Aadhaar violates fundamental rights or not, the Supreme Court actually formulated 9 questions. And some of these most important questions was: A, whether Aadhaar violates privacy or not; B, whether Aadhaar creates a surveillance state or not; whether it can profile citizens or not. These are some of the questions which they actually formulated, and they responded very emphatically that Aadhaar does not do any of the thing. So thereafter, even after that, unfortunately, the privacy people just keep on, drumming that whole privacy debate, which is actually non-existent now after Supreme Court's judgment. So I think this is again very, very, significant. Now, one thing which happened was that because Aadhaar Act was, put as a finance act, the Supreme Court said that if you are a finance act, then the purpose of that act should be limited only to the withdrawal of the consolidated money from the Consolidated Fund of India. It should be related to the Sarkari Paisa, because it's a finance bill. It's a part of the finance act, a finance bill. It's presented as a finance bill. Now, what has happened is, because of that, they said that for private sector using this Aadhaar, there is basically, there has to be a law, enabling law, because in a normal course, because it's primarily meant for ensuring that there are no leakages from the system, that there are no duplicates and ghosts in the system. Therefore, you can use it for this without any problems. That's one thing. In a way, Supreme Court judgment became a little bit of limiting factor. The government later on came out with an ordinance, and then thereafter the Aadhar Amendment Act, where the basic fundamental premise was that if privacy was a fundamental right, then right to identity is even more fundamental than that. I have a right to prove that I am R.S. Sharma, shouldn't I? And therefore, if I have an Aadhaar and I want to voluntarily prove that I am to prove my identity, I cannot be prevented from doing that. And therefore, voluntary use of Aadhaar in proving the identity was actually enabled by the amendment which was carried out under the Aadhaar Act. So that's one part. Lastly, sir, I would say that the basic issues of this whole architecture, there were certain defining principles which we had actually articulated and put it as a strategy document. One was that inclusivity, because while there was a claim of saying that everybody in India has an identity, sir, we realized that 25% people of India, when they went to Aadhaar enrollment center to enroll themselves for Aadhaar, did not have any individual verifiable document of identity. What it means is they had a ration card, but ration card cannot be used to open a bank account. Ration card is a family document which has names and ages, etc., and gender of family members, but it does not have the individual identity which cannot be used. Similarly, people had other documents. Of course, large number of people had the epic electoral photo ID cards. So that's one part, but that was only limited to the voters only, not the children, etc. So therefore, and what we had done was essentially we said if Aadhaar is to be inclusive, then we should not disable people from providing identity to those who do not have any document. Because if existence of document was a way to provide another document, then this is like a problem of computer, what is called the initial problem of starting a computer. Because it's called whatever way, if you have a document, then you can get another document, but if you have no document, you will never be able to get a document. So therefore we made it easy to say that anybody who has got a document from a pradhan, from a gazetted officer, from anybody, so much so that if I have an Aadhaar number and I can certify that the other person is actually X, he should be enrolled. So therefore, this is called a bootstrap problem. How do you bootstrap a system? How do you start the system initially? So this is, I think, this was the main factor. And 25% people actually presented documents which are not identity document, which actually showed, the bank accounts were not being opened because people did not have those documents. I still remember a case in which I come from a small village in UP. One of my relative passed away. He was my age, and he died in an accident. His wife was given 25,000 rupees of ex gratia payment by the state government of UP. Now this lady had a check, and she had no account, and it was an account pay check. So she called me and said कि भैया हमारे पास तो document नहीं है, अब हम इस check का क्या करें? So then I talked to the branch manager, Allahabad Bank branch manager in Firozabad, and I said भाई अकाउंट इनका खोल दीजिए. बोले साहब हम अकाउंट कैसे खोल देंगे? हमने कहा आपका तो एक अकाउंट है ना मिनिमम अकाउंट वाला, उसको खोलिए. बोले नहीं हम नहीं खोल सकते, आइडेंटिटी नहीं है. तो आप उसके बाद जो है दिस लेडी, we created a Narega job card to open a bank account for her. So it is not as if everybody had an identity, and that's what private sector privacy fellows will like to believe, because they are sitting in a drawing room, they have 10 identity papers, they have debit card, credit card, they have all driving license, and everything is there. So for those who have all the identity paper, they say bhai iski kya zarurat hai alag se. But those who don't have, how they are disabled to access any formal system is only the pain they can feel. And we actually created a system which was an inclusive system, also which was interoperable, based on standards, digital, cheap, cost effective, and based on an extremely powerful technology, which is the deduplication technology. And then we offered another service, which is the authentication service. And so till date, 31 billion people have authenticated, which means 3100 crore, 3100 crore लोगों ने अपना authentication किया है इस उसमें. Not even a single data from UIDAI biometric data has been leaked. Everybody was talking कि सब कुछ आधार में तो सब कुछ leak हो गया. So these are some of the defining characteristics, and I think, sir, one of the lessons which I have learned in this process is that we should design a system, and we should spend some time in designing. We spent 15 months, sir. The UIDAI was actually, we started working in July of 2009, and the first Aadhaar was issued on 29th of September 2010, which means we took 15 months to design the technology, to perfect the technology, and actually then to do the thing. So therefore, what is happening in many of the e-governance projects which fail is essentially because we don't design them well. We don't think through them. We don't, and actually we had certain principles, minimalistic. We will not call any, because we are designing a foundational identity. Therefore, we will not call any other thing which is necessary for establishing X is X. So how do you establish? One, X ka naam. Another, where is his communication address, because you have to send Aadhaar to his address, his gender and his age. That's all. So these four attributes, and of course, biometrics were required to ensure uniqueness. So therefore, minimalistic principle. In fact, we had a word called OM, AUM. A stood for asynchronous, which means we should not do any kind of priority where we say unless this is done, this is not done. So no dependencies. Each system should work asynchronously, independently. Second was unbundled. Unbundled. U stood for unbundled, which means that let's have separate these. There should be like Lego blocks. And M was minimalistic. So we should have asynchronous, unbundled, and minimalistic. This is how, and I think we have to think through these projects in a manner that they can, sort of deliver results. I'll stop here. I think, sir, I've taken more time than what was, allotted to me. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It has been a wonderful experience for me. Sir, you are unmute. Yes.
Thank you, Ram Sevak. We were lucky to hear you. And I'm sure Quraishi and Srinivas agree with me that we were fortunate that we heard Ram Sevak with such detail. I've never heard such details in any other forum. You did not answer one question, but I'll leave it for the future. That what happened when it was declared illegal by one of the ministers when the present government came. But I'll leave that question here. When I meet you, I'll ask for the details. Yakub, you want to raise something? Yakub,
yes,
you want to say something? Please go ahead. I'll not come in.
Question in lighter vein, Ram Sevak, that in your organization you had a unique experience of working with the entire range of civil service and the private sector. The general perception that the government servant, the bureaucracy is all useless, lazy, inefficient, whereas the private sector has all the bright people. Please tell me very, very honestly, no diplomatic answer, what was your experience?
No, Yakub, not yet.
No,
Yakub,
but I think, sir, I'm sorry, Chairman, sir. I just want to respond to Mr. Quraishi's question because it's very interesting question. There's no doubt that all the private sector fellows feel that we are all useless fellows. हम लोग एक दूसरे को सर कहते हैं और एक दूसरे से मतलब वही we are all pleasing each other and just in the whole hierarchy and bureaucracy we are. But let me tell you, sir, one thing. We are like uncut diamonds. This is I think simile may not be correct, but broadly what happens is we are certainly the brightest people academically who get into government jobs. Maybe the situation has changed now, but in our times, in your times, the best guys went to the civil services. Whichever, when I say civil services, doesn't mean IAS only, any other service, any sarkari service. So that's one part. So in terms of brilliance and in terms of academic excellence, we are certainly top class. What has happened is that the ecosystem in which we have been working, that ecosystem somehow has created a culture of the procrastination, the culture of rules and rules becoming an end in themselves and all kinds of things. And many of us fall into that prey. So that's one part. I'm not saying that some of us are exception to that rule, but generally that's one part. So what happened? I'll just tell you one anecdote. Mr. Nathan Nilekani also used to think, and all his colleagues also used to think that they are all useless fellows. अब ठीक है भाई, इनको रखना है because project तो सरकारी है, and without सरकारी project के I can't sort of run the project. So naturally there has to be a CEO, there has to be some other fellows. Private sector fellows will not be able to take decisions because decision लेने के लिए then decisions have to come with accountability. There are 3 C's: CBI, CVC, and CAG. So all these, who will deal with these 3 C's? Only Sarkari fellows will deal with these 3 C's. So initially, he asked me, Ram Sevak, why do you write so many long notes in these files? क्यों लिखते हो भाई इतना ज्यादा? एक छोटी चीज के लिए हम डिसीजन मांगते हैं या डिसीजन लेते हैं तो यू आर राइटिंग 5 pages, योर सबऑर्डिनेट्स आर राइटिंग 10 pages कि भाई दिस इज व्हाट इज इट. तो मैंने उनसे कहा विनम्रता से, मैंने कहा सर ये मेरे पिताजी का पैसा नहीं है. This is not my father's money. This is a public money, taxpayers' money. Therefore, we have to spend it that with the kind of sincerity as if I am spending my own money. So there, and because this particular writing on the file is not going to die down. After 10 years, somebody will look into it that why was something done. I should have there should be some proof, there should be some logic of it. So मैंने उनसे कहा कि this is the reason, because we have to justify and we have to rightly justify that we spent this money and this money is the public money. Then मैंने उनसे हंसी में कहा, मैंने कहा साहब इसको बोलते हैं फाइल का पेट भरना. फाइल को भी आखिरकार उसका पेट भरना चाहिए फाइल का. सो शुरुआत में इस तरह से बात आई गई होगी. Thereafter what happened, that we started taking decisions and we started, this, that, ये करिए, वो करिए, and he started getting all kinds of files. So he said, यार लोग इतना तेजी से काम क्यों कर रहे हो? तो मैंने कहा साहब आप तेजी से काम नहीं करेंगे तो प्रोजेक्ट चलेगा कैसे? So we started this. Then he started asking me कि राम सेवक ये फाइल मेरे पास जो लाए हो इसका पेट भर गया है ना? तो मैंने कहा हाँ साहब भर गया इसका पेट. So basically then he realized, and thereafter Mr. Nandan Nilekani, you ask him this question and he will respond to you that we certainly are very, very bright people. If given a chance, sir, we should understand, you have all been through this whole thing, under how many constraints we work, in the district. The administration, as they say, is the art of working in an imperfect environment. We work in a completely imperfect environment. But despite that, we are able to produce results. So we should look at the constraints which we are put through. In the private sector, there may not be any constraint. आपने सोचा, आपने decision लिया, boss से phone किया और कहा भाई चलिए. So the agility is there in the private sector, apparent agility. But that is not really, Mr. Nandan Nilekani and his entire team of private sector fellows, they realized how bright, decisive the Sarkari people were, as contrary to what they thought in the beginning. Let me tell you this honestly, sir. This is how we came out, and given a chance, all of us have that capability of delivering what is expected of us.
Thank you so much, Ram Sevak. Thank you, Quraishi. And I must thank Mr. Munshi for taking so much of pains of organizing this seminar and collecting so many people who are very relevant to Aadhaar. Thank you so much. Thank you, IIC.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.